Well, as you know, I've been up in my style game and giving my closet a makeover thanks to Peter Millar. And it's been so easy since they're all about quality, value, and style. And speaking of easy, Peter Millar is easily the most comfortable clothing you'll ever wear. Peter Millar polo shirts offer so much comfort and style. They're so easy to take care of. Out of the dryer, and you don't have to put an iron on them. They are great for the golf course because they even have sun protection built into the shirt. Peter Millar sport shirts look like a button-down dress shirt but feel as comfortable as a t-shirt. And they don't need to be dry cleaned. They're machine wash and dry. They won't shrink, and you don't have to iron them. Peter Millar 5-pocket pants are lightweight, highly breathable, made from the highest quality Pima cotton, and have comfort stretch for ease of movement. They'll fit like your favorite jeans with the style to be worn anywhere. They have Peter Millar's exclusive wash and finish to enhance the softness. Peter Millar performance shorts are moisture-wicking, breathable, and quick-drying. They have a stretch waistband so they move with you. That makes them perfect for playing around a golf, taking care of chores around the house, really anything you'll be doing this weekend. You'll never have to worry about what to wear to any occasion. Peter Millar is the go-to clothing for vacation, work events, the golf course, and even working out. Put Peter Millar on in the morning and never look back. You'll always have the right look. Check him out on social media at Peter Millar and at Peter Millar Golf. Peter Millar is the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn. And right now you can head over to petermillar.com/wingo and check out some of my Peter Millar favorites. Be sure to use my link and you'll receive complimentary shipping and a free hat. That's Peter Millar, MILLAR.com/wingo. petermillar.com/wingo.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We're on ESPN2 for the first 2 hours of the show. Here, henceforth, now and forever. Glad you're with us. Live from the Tundra Trio in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. And a bevy of our beautiful friends.
Yes.
They're all here with us.
This is awesome.
Give the guy in the hat, like, extra special privileges.
Oh,
whatever.
He's already taken extra special privileges. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a football town. It is football weather, and we have football to talk about. What's better than that?
Yeah, it's full-on tailgate season out here, too, right now. I look behind here, I look at everyone, I see all the red Solo cups. I was like, you guys all drinking? And they all look at me like I'm crazy. Like, of course we're drinking. What are you talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
What ridiculous question is that? How else are we supposed to get the practice reps in for Sunday?
That's exactly right.
And all this matters because, as we saw last night, football is back. Oh. And what better way and what better town, if you're not at the game itself, than to be here in Green Bay, outside Lambeau Field, to start off the 2018 NFL regular season.
Yeah, the only downside of it all was as everybody's gearing up to watch football last night, you get hit with a weather delay.
Yeah.
So everything kind of got pushed for
Damn
about
you, Mother
45
Nature.
minutes, a little bit.
It went from those horns to the wimpy party horn last night. As kickoff got pushed back a little bit extra. It was like Christmas morning somehow got dialed back and pushed back into the afternoon. But we got there. The game itself, we'll get into plenty, had a slow roll into what was a pretty exciting finish.
And some things have not changed from last year.
Yes.
Which we also find interesting.
And what I've learned here in Green Bay is a 45-minute delay is, they call it, that's 3-beer delay.
Yeah, it's a 3-beer delay. Everything is measured by beers and brats and cheese curds.
There you go.
And we're okay with that.
Yes,
we
we
want to
are.
be 100% clear. By the way, this setup that we have here in Green Bay is fantastic. The Tundra Trio is literally right across the street from Lambeau Field. And our hotel last night, we stayed at the Lodge Kohler, which was fantastic. But I have to tell you, the bathroom was a little confusing.
Wait. Are you going to talk about bathroom issues here?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
The bathroom itself, it's a smart bathroom. Which, by the way, that's a problem for us.
Right.
But, they have the shower with all the buttons, and I'm trying to... It took me a long time to figure out where the water comes out, which button I push, and there's 3 shower heads in there. And then as the shower's going on, I accidentally hit the one in the middle. Oh, yeah. And I got blasted in the face by cold water by accident.
You couldn't figure out the shower.
It took a while.
I mean, they put pictures on the buttons.
They do. For you, it wasn't that difficult.
In the dark. It was difficult.
Speaking of in the dark, my issue was there's the one master switch.
Oh, no.
That turns on all the lights.
I did that, too.
I turned it off, and all my other lights, I'm like, did I blow a fuse? I can't turn anything on.
So it's not just me.
No, we're idiots.
It's not just me. But
smart room and us doesn't go.
The shower, once I figured it out, was amazing. It just took a while.
All great.
It was all good. But we are here. We are getting ready. Of course, the Bears and Packers will play Sunday night here at Lambeau. I'm sure there's a Bear. No, there's not. There's no Bears fans here. But the greatest rivalry and the oldest rivalry in all of the NFL. We'll get into all of that, including a big breakdown of the game 1 of the 2018 regular season. But let's start the show like we always do with What's Trending.
This is important.
Oh, and play that Tiger sounder for me, Cliff.
Oh, he looked good.
Yeah, I got a Tiger folder, okay?
El Tigre.
Tiger Woods, yo. Oh, it's all happening at Aronimink. Tiger Woods shot a 29 over his first 9 holes. Finished with a course record tying 8 under 62 at the first round of the BMW Championships, the third of the 4 FedEx Cup playoffs. He's tied with Rory McIlroy atop the leaderboard, a 62.
Be interesting where this goes. Obviously, he's played not well, as we kept talking about in the first round, and put him and really knocked himself out of contention early. Was always playing catch up. Last time he had an opening round this good, you have to go back to 1999 in the Byron Nelson Classic. He shot a 61. In that opening round, ended up tied for 7. So it didn't finish well here, where he's been going is starting bad and finishing well. So let's see. Got the new putter, the new old putter, Scotty Cameron, worked out extremely well for him. But, boy, to see Tiger in the first round like that had been a rarity this year.
It had been, and the thing that I hate about this is now how forever associated with it Trey is going to be, because Evan and I, who work on our show, were going around here doing some stuff in Green Bay yesterday, and all of a sudden he taps me and goes, "Do you hear? Tiger's on the prowl." And the first person I thought of was Trey, so I am now forever tainted by this show and Trey's Tiger sounder.
By the way, that was just the 4th time in 17 tournaments this year that he has shot under par. So it has been a rarity for him to get off to this kind of a good start. And after the round, he talked about it, basically saying, Scotty Cameron, that putter with which he had won 13 of his 14 majors, was back in the bag, and Tiger was happy to have that putter back in the bag.
Been monkeying around with it at home and in the backyard throughout the summer. Just never felt right, but it feels good. I know. I was explaining to Robert over there. I know the release point, and I know how it swings, and my body morphs into a position where it understands where it needs to be to release the putter. And because I've hit hundreds of millions of putts with that damn thing, and I've had it since '99, so I've hit so many putts with it. My body just remembers it. And when I go away from it, even when I was using the Nike putter, I'd always bring it out and hit putts with it. And sometimes it works, but it just feels very familiar to me.
Is there nothing more golf nerdy than that? I know its release point. My body morphed to the right position.
It's like you found an old friend or something that he hadn't seen in years.
Hello,
holy smokes!
friends.
That got to be a little much.
A little uncomfortable?
It sounded like he'd been hanging out with Bryson DeChambeau. They're nerding out over his putter right now.
You know, the other news of this, there's still one more spot on the Ryder Cup team. And while we're talking about Tiger and Rory sitting at 8 under, then at 7 under, Xander Schauffele. I mean, he's a guy who's trying to get that last spot, right?
Yeah. I mean, technically, he finished the 12th. Yeah.
You know what he's doing? He's killing me, Schauffele.
With his play?
Come on.
With his play. With his score.
Sorry, I brought it up.
Stop that now.
Xander, I apologize.
Never quit.
Xander, I apologize. You do you, man.
Yeah, listen, so he's there, but Tiger Woods tees off with Ricky Fowler and Jordan Spieth at 8:06 Eastern, which is
no, that means we lose you in 2 hours.
So, yeah, you guys will finish the show by yourselves because I'll be watching that. All right, we continue What's Trending.
This is important.
With Serena Williams back in the U.S. Open final for the first time since 2014. Cruising past 19th seed Anastasia Sevastova, 6-3, 6-love. She'll go for her 7th U.S. Open title, which would break a tie with Chris Evert for the most by a woman in the Open era.
So she started out slow. It sounds like her come back after giving birth to her first daughter and Tigers sound the same.
Yeah.
They're all both off the slow starts all the time.
Correct.
And then they crank it up. She wins 12 of the last 13 games. And you always need a new line with somebody this great of what they're accomplishing. And for Serena, it's like try to win her first major after from being as a mom. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the one that has trouble talking about childbirth now.
Right,
how's it feel?
First one.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel bad at all.
No,
I
shouldn't.
didn't think about it.
Yours was much more awkward.
Yeah,
He
really.
just sort
really
of stumbled on the word. You said like completed birth. Or something.
It was. The download was complete.
Completed the pregnancy.
The download was complete, all right. I'm speaking Tiger Woods and Bryson DeChambeau. But
so it just morphed? Is that what you're saying?
It did. It morphed.
Listen, so she's in the final looking to win the U.S. Open against Naomi Osaka, who won 6-2, 6-4 over American Madison Keys. So, and Osaka, you heard in the Open there, said she wants Serena. She wants to play Serena.
Be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you might get it.
Again, you're exactly right. Yeah. You're exactly right, yeah.
It's the "we want Bama" sign of tennis.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not so much. And again, Madison Keys' second straight year that she is a semifinalist at the U.S. Open, but it is a final with Serena against Naomi Osaka of Japan. She actually has dual citizenship with the United States and Japan. And we continue with what's trending.
This is important.
The Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame will induct their 2018 class of honorees tonight in Springfield, Massachusetts. Former NBA players Ray Allen, Grant Hill, Jason Kidd, and Steve Nash headline the class.
Yeah, excellent class. Going along with Coach Lefty Drizel, women's basketball standouts Katie Smith, Tina Thompson, and four-time NBA All-Star Maurice Cheeks, and our own Doris Burke.
Yeah.
She's getting the Kurt Gowdy Award. She got that last night, so congrats to her. So well deserved. But again, as I'll continue to say, in any Hall of Fame, I so enjoy the speeches of the road, because we all know the stats. We all seen what they've done to make it in to this Hall of Fame, and it's a different Hall of Fame than like the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This will take, overseas. This will take college. This will take, international games, everything in this Hall of Fame. And to hear the road of everybody that's in the Hall of Fame, to me, is the best part of it all.
So we got Ray Allen, so maybe we can get Doc Clippers' hopeful Celtics reunion here.
Boy, he is really, Doc Rivers has really been talking about trying to get this group back together, because there is just... It's just a shame. There's just it seems that constant divide between that crew that won in Boston, and he would love for those guys to bury the hatchet. Unfortunately, I think they still want to do it into each other instead of making peace. Yeah, there you go.
Well, unfortunately, Ray made the horrible sin of leaving and going to the Miami Heat, which a lot of those Celtic fans and Celtics players just couldn't get over, right?
You say horrible sin sarcastically.
Of course I do.
It's ridiculous.
He took the best job available, and he went on to win another ring. So good for him.
He was ahead of his time in today's current NBA.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Did a lot of what the rest of the guys have followed with here. But you look at him, Steve Nash, who's certainly a guy that, as we talk about today's basketball relating back, was part of those Suns teams that really a lot of people think begot the current Warriors, the current Houston Rockets, and a lot of what we see in modern basketball.
Yeah, I'm happy for Mo Cheeks, too. Those 80s Sixers teams, one of my favorite teams of all time in NBA history. You had Mo Cheeks, you had Andrew Toney, Mark Ivaroni, for crying out loud, Charles Barkley, Dr. J at some time.
Oh, yeah.
Cliff, don't ever do that with Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
Cliff, you do that with Charles Barkley, I'll have Barkley come and stomp you.
We are going to tell Charles you did that.
And by the way, I know Charles. Charles is a friend of mine. He will take you out. Don't ever do that to the 80s 76ers. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Our phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and we finish up what's trending, which what we're all here for and what we're all about. It was the beginning of the 2018 regular season, and really, nothing's changed. The Falcons' 2017 season ended in the playoffs on the goal line in Philadelphia, and their 2018 regular season ended with their inability to get in the goal line and win the game in Philadelphia.
I mean, just really, listen, first and foremost, this was a sloppy game. This looked like a preseason game, much different than last year's opening game, Kansas City going in to New England the way that game was. This game, was ugly 6-3 game at halftime, and I don't say that because it was great defenses that were playing, even though the defenses were playing pretty well. It was a sloppy game on offense, but wow, the rearing of the ugly head of the red zone for the Atlanta Falcons in the first drive and the last drive of not being able to get the ball in the end zone. You want to talk about deja vu. An incompletion from Ryan to Julio Jones in the end zone ended this game just like it ended their playoff run last year against these same Philadelphia Eagles. So, and I know, Trey, we're going to get into talk about it in a moment about the first drive in the red zone of what maybe they should have done. But that's got to be something when you're thinking new year, clean slate. One of the things we know we want to get better on. Last year, Matt Ryan was 1 of 18 to Julio Jones in the end zone. Now he's 1 of 20 because 2 times last night he wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, and at least when you look at that ending, I thought, all right, you gave your best guy a shot in the red zone, because it seems like when you hear that numbers, that's more than I thought it would be, because they seem to get down there and it almost like go away from them, despite Julio Jones' skill set. When we talk about him amongst these group of top-tier receivers in the NFL, there doesn't seem to be one physically more tailor-made for the red area than Julio Jones with his physical gifts. But last night ends up being the quintessential Julio Jones and really Falcon story. Julio, monster game, a ton of catches, over 150 yards, and no touchdowns. That is the Atlanta Falcons in a nutshell.
It is, and Dan Quinn talked about that after the game, about their inability to get touchdowns when they get down there close.
17's over. This is 18, and that's part of our game that we've got to get right if we're going to be really good led. Our ability to, score down there, that has to change, and we weren't able to do that tonight. So we'll give credit to them. We knew coming in this was going to be a good matchup defensively, offensively, and all the different areas. But that part of our game, clearly tonight, we didn't execute at the level we'd like, and we've got work to do.
So I guess that's the best way to bring in the good, bad, and ugly. That's brought to you by State Farm. It's here to help get life right. Talk to an agent today at 800 State Farm. The good, that football is back. The bad, that we had a weather delay. And clearly, the ugly was the Falcons in the red zone. And you brought it up, Mike, and I am a believer on this. This is a bedrock of my foundation of how you play a football game. Don't ever chase points unless you need them. The first drive, I get it, things change and things would play out differently. But if the Falcons, instead of, we're going to bow our necks and make a statement and go in there and score on 4th and goal to prove we're a different team, if they'd kicked the field goal in that situation, you know what they need at the end of the game? A field goal to tie and send it into overtime. And if they hadn't botched an extra point, a field goal would have won the game. So my thing is, unless you absolutely positively got to have that touchdown, take the easy 3 points to start the game, because the hardest points to get in any game are the first points.
Yeah, first thing I'll say is you never know how the game's going to turn out.
This was the absolute,
you did, because it was the absolute first drive. And my thought on the why I didn't mind them going for it, because it was the first drive. It was the first drive. They went all the way down the field, ended up in the red zone, ended up on the 1 yard line. So there's a thought process of, okay, we're moving here. Maybe that's going to be a sign of things to come. So let's take the shot. A twofold. We moved down the field pretty easily. And secondly, let's try and change up that red zone thing from last year. So I really didn't have a problem them going for it, but kudos to the Philadelphia Eagles for making that stop.
Yeah, this ends up being a story about the Philadelphia Eagles defense looking in a lot of ways like it picked up right where they left off last season. Saw the addition of Haloti Ngata poking his head out multiple times last night.
About that,
for a guy that is,
how can you forget about a guy that big?
I know.
It is just amazing, though, because you'd kind of lost him in the shuffle. I know after, obviously the long-time Raven, but spent time in Detroit after that, and now popping up in Philadelphia and really making his presence known in a number of snaps last night on a defense that already brought Michael Bennett over on there, in addition to what they had in Fletcher Cox and Chris Long and the rest of those
Chris
guys.
Long had a sack and a half last night.
4 sacks as a team they had. The defense definitely played well, and they played well when they needed it most in the red zone. That was that first drive, and then the last drive, there's Atlanta again, but this time needing a score, so have to go for it, and they try that last pass to Julio Jones in the end zone that ends up, they end up not scoring.
And by the way, can we just say, Doug Peterson, kudos to you. What did they run in that game? One more time? The Philly special, and Coach Peterson talked about it after the game.
Well, it was a play we had put in for this week. It was a play that was in our third down menu. We were on the correct hash mark, and it was the right time of the game.
What do you call it?
Philly was the play.
Not Philly special, Philly.
I love it was in our third down menu.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. But from the Super Bowl, it was Clement to Trey Burton.
Yep.
Trey Burton actually tweeted about the play last night, which was pretty cool. This time, Trey Burton, and for those that may not know, is with the Chicago Bears now. So this time it was Clement to Nelson Aguilar, and it was a big play for them because this offense struggled. This offense did not put a lot of yards out there, did not have a lot of great movement out there at all, and this was kind of a spark for them to get them going just enough enough, get a couple of J.J. touchdowns, one a 1-yard run, and then another 11-yard run. Great blocking by the O-line and tight end. It left J.J. with one man to beat in both those instances, and he was able to break those tackles and get in the end zone. So not a great offensive night for the Eagles in this one, certainly not for the Falcons either.
We could say higher degree of difficulty on this pass, right? Nelson Aguilar a little more on the move, hit him right in stride there. He gave him a good chance for run after the catch.
By the way, you know who else loves the fact that they call that play the Philly? Our good friends at Bud Light. It's just Philly.
There you go.
That's all it is. A couple of things I'll say, just looking at this, at the box score and watching the game. If Nick Foles has a QBR rating of 26.2 going forward, they're probably not going to win many more games with him in there. 19 of 34 for only 117 yards and one interception.
Wasn't pretty.
No. And the other thing, and Mike, we talked about it all last year with the Falcons, their run-pass ratio is way out of whack, and it continues to be the second year of Steve Sarkisian being the offensive coordinator. Matt Ryan dropped back had 43 attempts. How many times did he sack? Four times. So that's basically 47 dropbacks. Okay?
Honestly, that was the thing that stuck out to me more than anything else, was especially when it came to because the Eagles' D-line will move around a little bit. There'll be a lot of stunts in games. Is the Falcons for most of the night had a real difficulty in picking up any of that.
But yes, they did. But that means 47 dropbacks to pass. And Matt Ryan had one run for 11 yards. I'm taking that out. That was a scramble, so that wasn't a rushing attempt. So you had 47 dropbacks and 17 runs. And once again, if I'm Devontae Freeman, I'm like, what do I have to do? He had 6 carries for 36 yards. I'm not good at quick math, and I know you are, but I know that's 6 yards a pop, okay? If you're given 6 yards a pop, you should probably get more than 6 carries.
I'm surprised. I thought in the second year with Steve Sarkisian, they may have settled more into that because it's not like this was a runaway game either way. You know, this was This was kind of an ugly game. So I was a little surprised at that. And speaking of ugly, in this game, 26 penalties between the two teams, 236 yards. By 2 minutes into the third quarter, Atlanta already had 10 of their 15 penalties. So kind of an ugly game all the way around. But it counts. This one goes in the standings now. So whatever mistakes you made, a lot better to clean them up after a win than certainly after a loss.
Yeah, and it really is just incredible for how much time we had in between, for how much has changed about both sides, how similar this game ends up looking from the very same playoff matchup we saw last season.
So again, to recap, the Eagles still have a little bit of that magic because they found a way to manufacture a win, whereas they didn't really play well on offense. The Falcons still can't figure out the red zone, and they can't figure out they need to hand the ball off to their best running back more than 6 times a game. And it was an ugly game, but you know what? I'd rather talk about an ugly game than not have a game to talk about when it comes to the NFL. Because play those trumpets, Cliff. Yeah! We are fully immersed.
Golic
and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Everybody else is about to get going except for the 2 Monday night double dips that are going to be on ESPN Monday night. So before we get into the Sunday, let's get into the full immersion of the games and some of the games that we really like week 1 of the first Sunday of the NFL regular season with our 5-point stance.
This is 5-Point Stance on Golic and Wingo.
All right, let's take a look at some of these games, and let's start with the Bengals at the Colts. Andrew Luck making his first start since the end of the 2016 season.
Well, the one thing I'm focusing on here is what did we still say, even though Ryan Kelly was back at center, they get the top offensive lineman in the draft and Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame playing left guard. Now, I know Costanza hadn't been playing at left tackle in the preseason, but that line, Mike, was still somewhat porous, and Andrew Luck was still running around a little bit because of the pressure. And they're taking on Cincinnati, who has some of the most depth they've had in the pass rushing on that D-line they've had in a while. Remember, they just extended Atkins and Dunlap's contracts. Those guys are rushing well. They have others as well. This is where I'm looking at this one, right on that line. Andrew Luck back. You got to give him some time. He's a great athlete to be on the move, but you don't want to get that guy hit a lot. I have a feeling he's going to feel a lot of pressure from that Bengal defensive line.
That's one of the toughest adjustments to make, even for guys as great as Kelly and Quentin both are, is coming into the NFL level. The pass rushers that you're dealing with are just so much better than what you see play in and play out in college. But on the other side, the Bengals are really interesting to me because during the preseason, and I know it's the preseason and, you know, the games don't count, but they matter is the old line. that Bengals offense started to look like it was clicking in ways it hadn't, and A.J. Green from Andy Dalton started to look like the connection it had been a few years ago.
And I think one of the reasons they did look like that is because John Ross, who was banged up all of last year, their first-round pick out of Washington, really was a non-factor his rookie year. He looked a little bit like Dante Hall, the human joystick in some of those games. I mean, he was moving around on the football field.
That blender of a juke down by the goal line on a long ball he caught in one of the in the third preseason game. That's going to be a very interesting offense to watch. If Tyler Eifert can stay on the field stay healthy for them, you've got elements at every level that all of a sudden starts to mimic a lot of what we saw from the Chiefs offense.
Yep.
Dynamic guy you can move around, great tight end, and now a deep threat with A.J. Green.
How important is Andrew Luck to the Colts team? They're 43-27 with him as a starter, 10-16 with any other quarterback. All right, we continue with our 5-point stance. Looking at what I think is a fascinating matchup week one, the 49ers at Minnesota. Obviously, you have Jimmy Garoppolo, all the money they played. He's yet to lose as a starting quarterback, be it in New England or with the San Francisco 49ers. They open up in Minnesota, a team that fully believes and expects to be in the Super Bowl when it's all said and done.
But you want to talk about a team in Minnesota that we love talking about their defense and some of the weapons. Diggs gets the new deal, which made our buddy Adam Thielen, go in and try and get more money.
We tried to get him to hold out. He wouldn't do it.
A great tight end in Kyle Rudolph. But they've been inconsistent at the quarterback position. Every quarterback on their roster is gone from last year. They're on their 6th different starting quarterback in the last 6 seasons as the opening day starter. They obviously hope to have Kirk Cousins there for a while. So there are question marks. That offensive line is nicked up. The defense, I still think, is going to have to carry this team.
Yeah, the defense who last year finished first in scoring defense and total defense brings back studs at every level with that group. And on the other side, a 49ers team that we're certainly excited about because of the quarterback, but just losing Jerick McKinnon right before the season, a guy who they're familiar with in Minnesota and who they had brought over there, regardless about how you feel about him, they had brought him over there for big dollars, and so you assumed there was a lot of usage coming his way in that offense.
What's interesting to me, Trey, with the 49ers is you just wonder about the patience factor, because remember, we made a big deal out of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, both coming in young guys with 6-year deals.
Right.
So they have time. All of a sudden, Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't lose a game when he starts as a starter, gets paid all that money and barely has done any work in the NFL. So now I wonder if expectations are getting sped up a little bit out there because of how well Garoppolo has played, which I think we still need to kind of little bit for a little more time on the field.
No, I agree with you there. Look, Jimmy's been great, but I don't think a lot of people are looking at the 49ers as a playoff team this year, and that might be the expectation that some fans are seeing at this point. And let's understand something. Minnesota has basically made an $84 million bet that they're going to the Super Bowl, because that's the money that they gave to Kirk Cousins, guaranteed all of it over those 3 years when they had the lead last year on the road with Case Keenum as their quarterback in the NFC Championship game and came up short. So that's the only way this works for Minnesota, is if somehow they get into the Super Bowl, which they couldn't get to a year ago. We continue our 5-point stance. By the way, the 5-point stance is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. Texans, Patriots. The Texans have never beaten the Patriots. 0-6 all time, including playoffs on the road against the Patriots. Houston, Jacksonville, and Chicago are the only teams who have yet to win at New England.
This gets really interesting because I think this Texans team is the one where most people are just slotting them in to the AFC scenario with everything they have coming back, assuming it all looks the same. Deshaun Watson had one of the better, 7-game stretches we've seen for a rookie quarterback, and God knows how long last year before that injury, so we leave with a good taste. J.J. Watt, former Defensive Player of the Year multiple times. They get him back. They get Whitney Merciless back. Yeah. They bring over Tyrann Mathieu, and so we're like, man, this all looks good, but those are all guys coming back from injury. And those are all guys we're not sure as they start to get up, as J.J. Watt starts to get older. Are we going to get that same guy back, or is that defense going to have to adjust to his best days being behind us?
It's always amazing when you talk about the Patriot and whoever matchup. You always talk about the whoever, because with the Patriots, you kind of know what you're getting, but you don't know what's going to happen when the game starts.
Right.
They could start it off with 12 straight passes, 12 straight runs. You don't know who the guy is going to be that Brady's going to go to, but you know they're going to have a great game plan. I mean, it's just assumed with the Patriots now that they'll be ready to go because they have the best coach. So it's always, what is the opponent going to do? And to Mike's point, all the stars now, it's not new people they got in, it's stars they got back.
Right.
And DeAndre Hopkins has to be one of the happiest guys in the world to hopefully get get one quarterback to throw to him for an entire season.
Right.
Because he is one of the better wide receivers in the league. I think that doesn't get put in that group enough, and I think he does deserve to be there.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of wide receivers, I'm really curious to see what this wide receiving core looks like for New England this year. I mean, Julian Edelman suspended. You know what you're going to get back with him, but basically it's Hogan and question marks at this point right now. Brandon Cooks was shipped off to the Rams.
But they turn question marks into check marks.
They do every year.
They do.
I'm trying to figure out which one, which of those guys is going to be that guy this year.
And you know what? While they're working that out, very interested to watch. As always, it's usually a bit of a mixed bag. Patriots running back situation. They go back and they draft a running back at the end of the first round.
Sony
Michel's been a bit limited. He got that knee drained early in camp, and I saw he's a limited participant in practice so far this week. But that's a guy who could be all of the things you want in a Patriot running back in one guy for once. And he could actually be a bell cow for them in a way we haven't seen in a while.
And they have Rex Burkhardt, who they find all kinds of ways to use. And don't forget they picked up Jeremy Hill from the Bengals in the offseason. Right. So one of those guys is going to be have a Deion Lewis type season, the way things always work out in New England. We continue the 5-point stance. I am really curious about this game for a lot of different reasons. The Steelers take on the Browns like they did a year ago, week 1. But Le'Veon Bell was there, and this is a totally different Browns team.
Yeah, and Le'Veon Bell, remember last year he had all season lows in that first game because he had just reported. So we'll see what James Conner can do. You know, a guy with an incredible story, beating cancer coming out of college, and now it's his backfield at least for the time being. So you know what you're getting out of that offense. The defense, I think you get a good push up the middle with that defensive line. For the Cleveland Browns, it's another year of hope. We all think they're better, and all they have to do is win one game, and they've had a better season. But I know they're expecting more than that. The over-under is 6.5 wins for this team. So I think the biggest question mark here is what are you actually going to see from the Browns?
Well, and I think we need to be careful with this team overreacting because the first 2 weeks playing with the Steelers and then at New Orleans to start off your season is not exactly a recipe for getting a lot of those early wins. Those Bud Light containers may have to stay closed for the first couple of games of the season before you get to the Jets and the Raiders in some games, but I think we're all interested after Hard Knocks and after watching this season. Forget the Cleveland offense that's got all this exciting name. What that defense is going to look like because everyone's looking at Myles Garrett and say, this is a guy who looks like he's got Defensive Player of the Year type skills that he's starting to actually put together, provided he can stay on the field and stop getting nicked up.
And how much pressure they're going to get because of a guy they didn't draft in the number 4 slot.
Bradley Chubb. Denzel Ward, the corner is banged up. But I tell you what, when he went against the Eagles first teamers in that Week 3 preseason game, it was a turnstile to the quarterback. Myles Garrett put on a show. And we finish up our 5-point stance with perhaps the marquee one-on-one matchup of Week 1. Jags at MetLife to take on the Giants. Odell, this is Jalen. Jalen, this is Odell.
And now they're kind of downplaying it. You heard Odell said, I'm not taking the cheese like I did against Josh Norman. I learned you have Jalen Ramsey saying it's not me against Odell, it's the Jacksonville against the Giants. So now they're saying the right things, but you're still hoping for that explosion on the field. Not what we saw with Odell and Norman, because that turned ridiculous, and it cost your team when the flags start to come out. But just from the pure talent standpoint of how good these two are when they are matched up against one another.
I mean, they could say all that want too. Jalen Ramsey's the guy that got A.J. Green to snap last year. If you're that level of provocateur, I have a feeling at some point we're going to see sparks fly. But for the rest of it, it's can that Jacksonville Jaguars defense continue to buoy an offense that we're always going to look at Blake Bortles and say, we're not really ready to buy in.
And then the O-line of the Giants had revamped. Will Hernandez on the left side, Nate Solder on the left side, Flowers goes over to the right tackle. Can they get it together and protect Eli and block well for Saquon Barkley?
It is interesting. Saquon Barkley was the second overall pick, and he's sort of an afterthought in this game.
Except for jersey sales. He's number 1, I think, isn't he?
He's doing very well.
Doing all right.
By the way, and here's how good Odell Beckham is. Odell Beckham Jr. is. Since he came into the league, he's missed 17 games. Only one player has more touchdown catches than his 38. That's how dynamic he's been with missing over a full regular season in his brief career. And that is our 5-point stance. Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Getting a quote is easier than ever. And if you're watching on ESPN2, the sun is up and it's glorious here in Green Bay.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations. Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Former Packers Super Bowl champion Mark Tauscher is here with us. Of course, you know him as the Packers Walter Payton Man of the Year 2008. You also going to hear him as part of the Wilde and Tausch Show in Wisconsin on 540 ESPN. How are you, my friend?
I'm well. I'm glad you didn't butcher Jason's name. He always gets upset when anything national and it's Wild.
No, it's Wilde.
Yeah, so we appreciate that.
So he doesn't like when his name gets butchered? How is Wild doing?
Wild is doing okay. He, I asked
awesome.
him, he lives in Green Bay. He said he'll catch it on TV.
There you go. There you go.
Thanks, Jason.
I look at you, Mark, in your career, both college and the NFL, as incredibly fortunate from a fan support from Wisconsin, which is ridiculous, and I want to get into a little bit with you, and then your career here with the Packers. I mean, you've never been in a situation where there was fan apathy, that's for sure.
No, that's one of the big pluses, obviously, being able to play at Wisconsin. You grow up here, I'm rooting for the team, 80s, not so good.
Right.
Brett Favre comes into town, and next thing you know, we've been at or near the top the entire time. So to be able to play at Wisconsin and then also come up here, have the fan support, have family and friends be able to come to the game, it's been a dream come true.
All right. Speaking of Wisconsin, your buddy in college claims to have started the jump around tradition. What's going on there?
That is true.
That is true.
Yes.
Give us the whole enchilada.
Right, this is one of the for people that don't know one of the great things in sports to watch the student body to Wisconsin game when the song "Jump Around" comes. I mean, that whole stadium is moving.
Camp Randall is moving, baby.
Yes, and people have tried to replicate it. It doesn't happen. Matter of fact, we played LSU up here probably 2 or 3 years ago. It's just not the same because there's not the shaking of the stadium. Right. But yes, we had 3 football players, Eric Weisen and Ryan Sondrup and Eric Grahams, a couple of Fond du Lac guys, and they said, we need to do something to spruce things up. And next thing you know, they start doing it, and it just takes fire from there. And it now is probably the best tradition.
Did they start doing it in the stadium at first or somewhere else?
So it was through the marketing department, and they said, all right, let's get this song going. And it just kind of started like a grassroots operation. Next thing you know, here it is.
I was going to say, because the first time it was done, how drunk were they? I mean, let's be honest.
Probably, my guess, they probably had a couple Tito's.
There you go.
Yeah, on the scale of 1 to 10, they were at 7 Tito's. Yeah. I think that's basically what we're saying. Is Mark Tauscher, former Packers Super Bowl champ, joins us here on the set at the Tundra Trio, just across from Lambeau Field. So, okay. Regular season started last night. Philadelphia wins. The Falcons continue to have their issues, not only in the red zone, but, Mark, also in play calling. We calculate the numbers a different way than just looking at attempts of run versus pass, because Matt Ryan dropped back 43 times, but he was sacked 4 times. So that's really 4 more pass attempts. He also scrambled on a run, so that's really 48 pass plays called, and that's only 17 designated run plays. As an offensive lineman, if that continues to be that way, at what point do you say to your offensive coordinator, dude, you're killing us?
I don't know if you say, dude, you're killing us, but there's definitely – I think there's a perception now because the league is so pass happy and it's easier to throw the football that teams have went away from the running game. But the balance, and you said 44 to 17, whatever.
48 to 17.
At the end of the game, more. At the end of the game, you see their empty set the entire time. You know now, hey, We can bring it. We can do different blitzes. And Atlanta was, Matt Ryan was under pressure all night. They didn't do it. That doesn't do anything to help Matt Ryan.
Right.
And from the running game for an offensive lineman, Mike, as a defensive lineman, it's a lot easier when it's empty set. You're like, all right, I can pin my ears back and go. Where if you can do play action or if you can do some things to make your job easier on the offensive line, when you do it this way, it makes your job that much more difficult.
Here's what I don't understand. Along with those lines, and I remember, I believe it was Dallas when Tyron Smith was out and they had a new left tackle in, and he was just getting abused, and they never helped him. They never double with a tight end. They never chip with a back, and they said, well, this is kind of how
what we do.
And I'm watching last night, and I'm seeing these empty sets, the O-line getting no help at all. I sometimes wonder what's the thought process behind not giving your O-line help when they've been giving up pressure.
Well, I think the thought is if you go empty, you can get the ball out quicker.
That's a thought.
But when you do that at the end of the game and you have to get in the end zone, you don't have any timeouts left, it limits what you can do, and then you can get more exotic with your blitz packages because there's only so many things you can do protection-wise if you're empty. So it's always better. In Dallas, I think, when you're talking about Tyron Smith, the running game always is what makes them go. And when he's not playing and he's one of the elite players, you can't just throw somebody out there and say, all right, here you go. You have to make adjustments, and that's a great example of them not doing that.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they gave Adrian Claiborne 6 sacks in that game, and I think he needed 10 for a extra bonus. He only got 2 more the rest of the year. It was insane. Okay, so look, as Herm Edwards says, any plan that can't be changed is a bad plan. So I don't want to hear that's what we do. At some point, if it's killing you, you have to change it. Speaking of things that sometimes can kill a team, dissension among the ranks. We have a really interesting situation as Mark Tauscher is here with us, former Packer Super Bowl champion, played on the offensive line all 11 years here in Green Bay, where Le'Veon Bell is not there, and clearly there was an implication or an idea that the rest of the Steelers thought he was going to show up. And you have Ramon Foster and Marquise Pouncey basically saying, hey, man, he kind of screwed us here, and now we got to worry about this, and I'm making 1/7 of what you're making, and I'm doing the blocking for you. I've never heard such open talk about another player's contract from other guys in the locker room, especially from the offensive line, which is usually this silent stick-together type. What did you make of what we heard out of those offensive linemen talking about Le'Veon Bell's deal?
I was shocked because there's unwritten rules. Baseball has a bunch of them, but with
baseball,
football, you don't,
way too many.
Probably. You don't talk about other people's money. It just doesn't make any sense. And now, I don't understand unless there is just Ramon Foster, he's in his 10th year. I get it. You don't know how many more years you have left. So you want to be able to really have the best season you can. Le'Veon Bell is going to do that. But when, he's not coming in, he also has to look at Pittsburgh is not giving me a long-term contract. What are they going to do? Are they going to use me up and spit me out at the end of the season? So to get into that, now what's going to happen if he does report? Yeah. And then if you have a missed block, it's going to be, it's not going to be remember the Titans, but you just don't know how that's going to play out. The whole thing it's chaos.
Remember the Titans.
How quickly does this need to do those players that spoke up against him, does there need to be a conversation with Le'Veon now before he reports, or is this all they have to worry about the start of the season, and then when he reports, they'll worry about, getting everything back together?
I mean, my guess is because you're in game week prep, you're not worried about, you always hear players say, worry about the guys that are here, and then we'll deal with that. So my guess is when he reports, they're going to have a sit-down because there's going to be a lot of stress between both parties when you do that. And I don't know I know you mentioned last night Michael Strahan and Tiki Barber.
Yeah.
That's never been resolved.
No,
because
they
when
still
you start getting
they still are boys, yeah.
Yeah, when you get into people's money, that is when things get a little dicey.
Yeah, and I'd never heard it that blatant in that situation. Look, we'll see if that plays it out when he shows up. And then the question becomes, if Le'Veon Bell is really all in for his free agency year, how much is he even invested in 2018?
And I think that's the question. And, it's easy to say we're going to focus on this season, but when you're looking at a long-term contract, and especially at that position, at that age where he, has 3-4 good years of prime time left to earn, it's a real balancing act. But once you report, you start playing, and it's all about football.
All right, former Packers offensive lineman, Super Bowl champ Mark Tauscher here with us on the set, rather.
Yeah,
in our mobile studio. Former Packers Super Bowl champion, 11-year veteran on the offensive line, Mark Tauscher is here with us. So let's dive into what happened Sunday night. There's really no older or better rivalry in football than the Bears and the Packers. I mean, it goes back to the beginning of the NFL. Whenever you guys played the Bears, and obviously you played them twice a year, just what was the feeling like as opposed to any other week? Because you know what this rivalry represents to these fans.
Well, I think what's great is that the organization, my first season, Mike Sherman had Fuzzy Thurston come in and talk about the importance of the rivalry with the Bears, what it meant to him. And it was always on, right there for us to know what the history of it was and why it was important. And, Chicago, for the most part, has been a really good football team. Not as much with Favre and Rodgers. We've kind of gotten that number that you talked about, evening it back up. Yeah. But it's close geographically, but it is always a good physical game, and there's a lot of respect amongst the players.
Take us inside the huddle a little bit, and take us to being in the huddle with great quarterbacks like you've been in the huddle with, and just how different it is with those guys and the control they have.
Well, I think, and fortunately for me, I've only played with Aaron and Brett, so I haven't.
Wait, let's just hold on.
That's unreal.
Let's just understand that. Who were the two quarterbacks you blocked for? I don't know. Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers.
It's whatever. Amazing.
So you talk to other guys, and everybody. This is kind of the season of hope. All 32 teams, I think some are delusional, but think that they can win a Super Bowl. Yeah. But when you have the quarterback, and people ask about leadership, and the biggest thing is everybody in that locker room believes every game when you have Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers that you can beat anybody that you're playing against, and that's completely invaluable when you're talking about a leadership standpoint and getting guys to buy in.
Well, listen, everybody bought in there, and everybody's buying in on the hope that Aaron Rodgers brings with him being back and hopefully healthy this year. We know that the Saints look really good. We know that the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, and their backup quarterback helped them to another win last night. We know that Minnesota thinks they're all in with the.
Yeah, what are you wearing purple in Green Bay? Have you gotten hit already with that?
No,
some people
the love is real.
He calls it eggplant.
Dusty Rose.
Dusty Rose.
And we also know that the Rams are all in with the moves they made. So where do you think the Packers fit in what is going to be a very difficult NFC? I think there are 5 teams that really from the NFC think they have a chance to win it all.
Yeah, I'm sure Atlanta feels that way too. I think the key is getting home field. And Green Bay, you look at the schedule, home games you always assume, you're always thinking with Aaron Rodgers you should go 7-1, 8-0. And then if you split your road games, and there's a tough road schedule at New England and at the Los Angeles Rams will be tricky games, but I think everybody here believes that if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, this team can accomplish every goal that it sets. And now you have a new defensive coordinator that's brought a lot of juice, and there's a ton of energy. Mike Pettin, who has never had a defense that's below, not been in the top 10. You have new defensive backs. There is a sense of optimism that this defense is going to be much better than it was. And I think with Jimmy Graham and Devontae Adams and the offensive weapons, with Joe Philbin being back, the optimism here is Super Bowl or bust. There's no question. And if Aaron stays healthy, that's a definitely very achievable goal.
And playing the Chicago Bears, one of the new players they got, Khalil Mack. I heard Tony Dungy say last night his plan for Mack since he just got there would be 20 plays. Don't worry about the defense call. Just rush the passer. If you get 5 pressures or knockdowns, we're good. That would be the goal. So first off, your thought about Khalil Mack from the Oakland side of giving him up and the Chicago side of getting him.
I don't understand from the Oakland side. You draft a player and you hope that you have to pay him. You hope he's that good that he's going to be. So from Oakland's perspective, no idea. But I know Green Bay was in the mix to try to get him. When you can get a player that's in his prime, that is durable and has been that productive, Chicago, I think, is very excited. They thought that pass rush was needed. And when you have quarterbacks, Stafford, Rodgers, you have to be able to get after him. So that's probably their thought process. But for Chicago, I think it's going to be Mitch Trubisky. Is he going to take the next step? Because I don't think anyone is really knows what he's going to bring yet. And without that position being stable, you can have the greatest defense ever. You still need to score points.
So Mack, obviously, there to be a great pass rusher. In your years, who gave you the most trouble when you were pass blocking?
I think Michael Strahan was always somebody that you just knew he was going to figure things out, and you tried to figure things out with him. But it was I always felt really good playing over here because you're at home and you can get off on the snap count.
Yep.
It was playing up in Minnesota where they were pumping in noise and it was super loud, and those were the games that would always be the most challenging.
So you're saying they were pumping in noise?
I'm not saying, but I'm believing.
You're believing. That's a core tenet he's going to stick to more than anything else. I do love what Ryan Pace, the Bears GM, has done. You mentioned making the trade, giving up a couple of ones. He might be the most wild GM in the NFL right now. Last year, he moved up a lot to get Trubisky. He's moving picks this year. I mean, he's not afraid. Now, there might be a time down the road where he'll be missing some of these picks that he's given up. But, boy, he's not afraid to deal those things and do whatever he needs to help his team.
No, he is. I think the guy out in Los Angeles, the Rams, he's pretty aggressive too. But, yes, the thing with this, when you have, and you guys have talked about this a lot, the rookie quarterback and not paying him top dollar, you can be more aggressive paying other people, but you still have to get that position right. And I don't, Chicago's thinking they do, but nobody knows yet. So we'll have to wait and see. If that happens, then all right, now you have that roster and you'll make some moves. You'll have a developed quarterback and you bring in some younger players.
I think this is a huge year for Trubisky because they got a little more weapons around him. They went and got some wide receivers. They got Trey Burton.
Well, they always talk about the biggest jump that rookie year to your second year and what they're trying to build around him. So, they're ready for his process to continue.
Yeah, and I think that front seven on defense will help him get a few more possessions as well. Tausch, always good to see you, my friend. Mark Tauscher here with us at the Tundra Trio.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
Brian, thanks for being with us, and I think a lot of people would like to get optimum protection and performance from their bets. As we're beginning to get this whole brave new world with legalized sports gambling on sports in certain states, how much money do you think will be generated by the NFL alone?
Oh, gosh, north of several billion. It's going to be huge. And good morning, gentlemen. Thanks a lot for having me. The Supreme Court ruling was long overdue, and thank goodness. It's nothing but good news. And I would say in the next 5 years, perhaps half of the states in the U.S. will have legalized sports gambling.
And as far as teams, we've seen the Cowboys already partner up with a casino. Would you expect each team to individually be partnering up with casinos and getting some deals done?
Absolutely. That'll happen fast. And there are so many moneymakers out there for all the pro teams. And it's gonna be huge. And it's all going to be good. And there are no negatives in this. There will be full transparency and regulation like it is in Nevada. Every point-fixing scandal that has ever happened, the FBI was tipped off because the Gaming Control Board in Nevada was on top of it. And it's nothing but good stuff.
Brian, one of the things Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, said is when this happened and it's going to be legalized state after state, was that he wanted the teams to get or the league to get 1% basically of the action for all the info that they were going to get. And while it's legalized, while that never happened in Nevada where gambling has been legal, do you see something like that happen, or do you just see individual teams working out deals?
Yeah, I think that was a little aggressive of Adam Silver. Now, I love how he's been out in front of this. I mean, he was talking about this 4 or 5 years ago, and so I love how he's been out in front of it. But the 1%, I think that's a little much.
Well, listen, you always shoot for the moon, and hopefully you get half of it, and that would still be a lot of money. Brian Edwards, senior handicapper at VegasInsider.com with us. Look, we'll get into specific bets that you like for the NFL weekend in just a minute, but I want to go back to a point you just made because I think it's really important for people to understand this. People are saying, well, we need to make sure the integrity of the game is protected against these gaming schemes or gambling plots and these things to fix games and matches. And what you said is absolutely right. There was a huge match-fixing scandal in tennis a couple of years ago, and the only way it was tipped off is because people that were taking legal bets all across Europe and other parts of the world kept seeing at these lower tennis tournaments guys that should be massively favored. They were being heavy money was being put on them to lose matches to much lower-rated opponents, and that's how everything was discovered.
Yes, and the Arizona State basketball point-fixing scandal, which was about 20 years ago, they were playing, like, I want to say Washington State, and they were, the spread was 8 or 9. Well, during the course of the day, so many students from ASU that were, knew about this fix had come to Vegas and were making so many bets around town, the line got moved up to about 15. But the Gaming Control Board tipped off the FBI, and by halftime of that game, the feds were in ASU's locker room asking questions. So that's why these things, that's why people get busted, exactly how you pointed out with the tennis thing.
Talking to Brian Edwards, senior handicapper at VegasInsider.com, also hosts the Game Galore's podcast as well. Looking at the NFL, before we get into some of the actual games, what's been the biggest money on which teams to win the Super Bowl, and what in your mind would be the best bet to get you the most money because of the odds to take a chance on the team in the Super Bowl?
Well, the Westgate Superbook, the Rams have gotten the most action, followed by the Packers, then the Vikings, then the 49ers, and the Browns, with their long odds, are the most liability for them at the Westgate. In fact, if the Browns were to win the Super Bowl, they would have 5 times as much liability than any other team. Looking at the odds, in terms of, I don't like to, 10 to 1, 12 to 1 doesn't really do it for me. I'm not saying the Niners are going to win it, but I think that 30 to 1 with Garoppolo, the way what they were 1 in 10, he took a 1 in 10 team and then he went 5-0 with them. That gives me, I think he's the real deal. And I think the Niners could have a big season. And look, when you have 30 to 1 odds, they don't have to win the Super Bowl for you to profit. They get into the playoffs, you're going to have some hedge opportunities. And so I would say the Niners at 30 to 1 looks pretty attractive.
Okay, so that's the overall for the season as we're talking to Brian Edwards, senior handicapper at VegasInsider.com and the host of the Games Galore podcast. Let's look at specific matchups you like this week. You like the Ravens -7 against the Bills. Why are you in on Baltimore there?
Well, it's just fading Nathan Peterman. What are the Bills doing? They go to the playoffs for the first time in 17 or 18 years, and now they're going into a season with Peterman as their starter. He got a surprising start at San Diego last year when they benched Tyrod Taylor briefly, and I jumped all over the Chargers in that game. I love going against quarterbacks making their first career start on the road, and he threw 5 picks in the first half, and that was an easy win. Now, the line has gone up to 7.5, so I recommend buying the half point to the key number of 7. But and it's not that I'm super high on Baltimore this year. I mean, I think they're going to be pretty good. I've got them going 8-8. But just going against a bad quarterback, I like to do that, especially on the road. So I'll go the Ravens and make sure to buy that half point to the key number of 7.
I always like a team to talk about a team that's going to New England because New England's been so good. The Texans are getting 7 points going to New England. Deshaun Watson last year went to Foxborough and in a loss put up 33.
Almost won the game.
Yeah, he did. So what do you think of that line?
Well, you're not going to make a good living going against Brady and Belichick. I do lean to the Texans here. I'm just being patient and watching the number, hoping some more money is going to come in on New England. I want the number to get up to 7 before I would take the Texans. They're definitely my lean, but I'm just going to watch the numbers, see what happens between now and kickoff. Because, look, I'm always hesitant to fade the Pats with Belichick and Brady, but if I can get 7, I'll take it. So we'll see what happens with the line.
All right, we're talking with Brian Edwards, senior handicapper at VegasInsider.com. Now, all the many bets you can do, you can bet on anything, obviously, but I'm curious on this one. You said you'd never make a living betting against Brady and Belichick, but you're betting pretty heavily on another member of that team. You like Sony Michel, the running back out of Georgia, to be the offensive rookie of the year. Why are you so high on him?
Well, the 30 to 1 odds certainly help. But look, Sony Michel, he had to split carries with Nick Chubb throughout his collegiate career. I think he's going to get more touches in this offense. I think he is just the perfect guy. Offenses are obviously going to be keying on Brady in the passing game. He can go to the house on any given touch. I think he's going to have a huge season, and 30 to 1 odds are very, very attractive. As long as he stays healthy, I think he'll get 15 to 20 touches a game. Catching the ball in the backfield as well, and he's gonna bust a lot of long ones. And I like Sony Michel at 30 to 1 odds to be rookie of the year offensively.
I do like what he does, no doubt about it. Had the knee drained in preseason, so we'll see how that goes. Speaking of Sony Michel and his former team, Georgia, let's go to college for a second because I hope our buddy Darius Rucker is up listening to this one. One of your best bets in college this week, South Carolina is +10 against Georgia, but forgetting the number, you really like South Carolina in this game.
Yeah, I've been calling this my upset of the year since early in the summer. They gave Georgia all they wanted between the hedges last year, and that was without their star Deebo Samuel and their best linebacker, Bryson Allen Williams. Deebo Samuel scored 5 touchdowns in the first 2 games last year, and then the first play from scrimmage in Week 3 against Kentucky, he took a quick slant, took it to the house, so he had 6 touchdowns in 2 games in 1 play. He broke his leg later that game, was out for the season. Bryson Allen Williams also got hurt in that game. Both those guys are healthy now. Jake Bentley, he'll be making his 22nd career start this week. He enrolled early when he was a true freshman, and he took over that 2-4 team and went 4-3 down the stretch. He should have been a senior in high school, so age-wise, he should only be a true sophomore now. But he's a grizzled veteran. I think he is ready to have a breakout season. South Carolina's 54-16 straight up over the last decade at Williams-Brice. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. Doesn't hurt our cause that Natrez Patrick, one of Georgia's best linebackers, is questionable, and their best receiver, Terry Godwin, is also questionable. But that's just a little extra. I've had my eye on South Carolina to win this game outright all summer. You can get them on the money line plus 300, but I certainly recommend you take them plus the points for a much bigger amount, say 3 or 4 units on South Carolina plus the 10, 1.5 units on the money line.
Well, obviously Darius is happy, even if he didn't hear that. All right, real quickly, because we're out of time here. What's the strangest prop bet you've taken or heard of about the NFL season so far?
Oh, strangest odds? It's not really strange, but I'll tell you my favorite future bet is the Texans plus 200 to win the AFC South. If the number doesn't get to 7 with New England, I may not play them this week, but I'm playing them for the season. I think Bortles will come back to earth and have not a good year for the Jags. I think the Texans will win the AFC South.
Wow. All right, that's an interesting one with Deshaun Watson coming back. All right, Brian Edwards, senior handicapper at VegasInsider.com. Thanks for giving us the inside scoop.
Thanks, Brian.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
Ewan Almonds versus Where Did I Park My Car? Right now you're wondering if your car was on B7 or G11, or maybe it rhymed with orange. And with all this honking, the car alarm trick's no use. But then, like an eagle spying its prey, you see the sensible sedan that you call Lucky. Triumphantly, you pop your trunk just like you popped those almonds in your mouth. It's thanks to those 6 grams of energy-giving protein that you've mastered this maze. High five yourself, you've earned it. California Almonds. Own your everyday, every day.
It is our delight to welcome in, finally, Hall of Famer Jerry Kramer of the Green Bay Packers. Jerry, it is great to have you here. I'm very fortunate. I go to the Hall of Fame every year to do the ceremonies for ESPN, and I have waited for the moment to hear your name called for so long. I mean, the resume was there, all-decade team of the 60s, everything that went on. And what was it like finally when you got the knock on the door from David Baker and said your long overdue enshrinement is now here?
Well, it was much greater and much bigger than I anticipated. I had kind of marginalized it in my mind to get along with myself.
Sure.
And be comfortable with not being there. And so I assumed that, I might have missed a lunch with Bart and Paul or Jimmy, and I might have missed a couple things, little things like that. Well, we were there for like 6 or 7 days, and my whole family was there, all of my children and nieces and brothers and sisters and nephews and on and on and on. And so many of the guys that were formerly presented to the Hall of Fame were back, like 50 or 60 of them, and I knew a lot of them. And they came up and were very gracious, and Jerry, it should have been a long time ago, and all kinds of nice things. So it turned out to be a warm and fuzzy, and all the little aggravations and irritations and frustrations went away, and I'm giggling like a 9-year-old girl.
As you should.
One of the induction ceremony is fantastic, but that Friday night when you get the gold jacket, and the one thing I notice is obviously the greatest of all time are in that room, but still even there are levels. And the respect that you got from the other Hall of Famers, to me, if you could talk about that night when you're walking through the gauntlet of the guys with the gold jacket to get to yours, I was just, it brought chills to me to see how you were received by these great players.
Mike, that was a highlight. That was a real highlight. It started off with Bob Lilly and Namath and guys that I'd known for a while, and I got to 3 guards. John Hanna from New England,
right? Yes.
Yeah. Joe DeLamiere from Buffalo, and Tom Mack from L.A. And they surrounded me. And Jerry, you should have been here long ago. And Jerry, we used you as a model. Our coach said, just watch you. And a lot of wonderful comments like that. And they're crying, and I'm crying, and we're blubbering and holding up the line. But it was just a wonderful moment for me, maybe a highlight of the whole experience, to have my peer group welcome me and say I should have been there a while ago.
Very cool.
That's awesome. As Hall of Famer and Packer legend Jerry Kramer is here with us. And one of the things that we always look forward to in Canton is the speeches. And what I loved most about your speech is you were letting an entire generation of football fans know perhaps what these fans know here, but what they didn't know is the genius of Vince Lombardi.
Yeah, he was a very special human being, a very bright man, very educated man, and Greek classics were the love of his life. And Aristotle's philosophies and principles and beliefs were Coach Lombardi's philosophies and principles and belief. And they were such fundamental things that you don't think about early on, but preparation, commitment, consistency, discipline, pride, character, tenacity, belief in your team. Those things are so fundamental, and yet they are such a important building blocks for an organization or for an individual to succeed and do what he needs to do in the world. So it was something that I learned from Coach Lombardi, and it made a huge difference in my life. And so I have kind of decided it was my duty to explain Coach Lombardi and explain his philosophies and his beliefs. So I took it upon myself to understand that a little bit better and read a little bit more and studied a little bit more and came to the conclusion that he was right about virtually everything he had to say.
I think what also has been great about you getting into the Hall of Fame, way overdue, as we all know, was the fact that on your resume it says 2-time Super Bowl champion, but you were a 5-time. Right. I mean, to let everybody know, there was actual championship games before the Super Bowl. I think that kind of opened some people's eyes. Say, oh yeah. I mean, there was ball back then, and real good ball back then. But I think it is a great way to let people know of just the greatness, not only of you, but the Green Bay Packer team in those times.
Yeah, that was a very special time. Of course, we didn't have the salary cap, and we didn't have the billion-dollar quarterbacks. And everybody was happy, and we were having a wonderful time. It was a wonderful ride with 5 titles in a 7-year period.
That's insane.
Thought it would never end, of course, but we had a wonderful group of guys and a wonderful feeling on the team. I was talking to some of the guys at Canton about prejudice. And I said, it'd be really interesting for us to say something about prejudice, and maybe we could help the world a little bit down the road. And I said, on our team, we were judged by our contribution to the club, by how valuable we were to the team. I don't care if you're short, fat, tall, ugly, beautiful, skinny, whatever. If you're a teammate and you make a contribution, you're my guy.
Right.
Come on in. You're part of the group. And wouldn't it be better if the world would judge maybe on some of those same principles?
Absolutely.
Instead of...
Absolutely.
Well, it was interesting. I think a teammate of yours and a very good friend of mine, Bill Curry, talked about the same thing about the huddle. It didn't matter, what ethnicity or anything about you. Is just you all came together, and if the kind of the country or the world could be like that huddle and how you treated one another, that we'd all would be in a better spot.
I think so. I don't think there's any question about it. And it makes sense. I love Red Fox's humor, and Red was telling a story about prejudice one day, and he said, everybody's prejudiced. There's prejudice against little guys, there's prejudice against big guys, the fat guys, skinny guys, beautiful women, ugly women. There's prejudice all over. He said, I hate midgets. I hate midgets. Yeah. I just hate midgets. And I hate okra. If I ever catch a midget eating okra, I'm going to put my foot in his backside.
And so, Jerry Kramer joining us. You're 82 years old. I mean, you look great. You feel great. You've been keeping it all together. You look fantastic.
Thank you, Mike. I do feel good. I have some back issues that I've been working on. I've got some stem cell injections I'm going through, and they're making a slow difference, but it's getting better. And I do feel good. I basically, fundamentally feel like I want to go and I want to do, and I'm comfortable traveling. I struggle a little bit in and out of the airports and whatnot, but I'm still running and gunning and enjoying it.
Well, you certainly are, and we're enjoying having you here as Hall of Famer Jerry Kramer is with us. Obviously, Vince Lombardi had a huge impact on your life. Vince passed away way too soon from colon cancer, and I know that's something you want to make sure people are aware of.
Yeah, there's a solution to colon cancer now, and it's early detection, prevention. There's a company called Cologuard that allows you to take a sample of your stool and do it in the privacy of your home and mail it in to the doc and find out if you're going to die young or if you're going to live to a ripe old age. And it's just so simple and so wonderful to have a tool like that to save your life and change your life. If Coach Lombardi had that and had been comfortable with that, then he would have lived to be 70, 80, 90 years old. Yeah. So the Lombardi Cancer Society is an organization down in Milwaukee that I work with a lot, and they're behind this, and virtually everybody's behind it that's got any sense. So it's a wonderful product, and you should look into it.
Early detection, certainly the key. No doubt
it
about
really
that.
is. And the sad thing is you go back and watch the last few years of Vince's coaching career on NFL films, and you can see he's dealing with all that. He thought it was just stomach pain because they didn't have what was available to him back then.
I went in to see him in Washington in the hospital a week before he passed, and he had his fists clenched and his eyes closed, and he was fighting it. He believed that the burn, the hunger, the drive could make a difference. And I came over and touched him on the arm, and I said, Coach, I know where you are. I know you're fighting it. I just needed to stop and tell you what a difference you made in my life and how much I love you. And I just wanted to stop by and see you. And I got to go. I'm not going to stay. So I started for the door, and a nurse comes in. And he looks up and he goes, Jerry, come back a minute. I went back by his bedside, and he said, show her your stomach. So I pulled up my shirt, and I've got all kinds of scars and operations and things in my stomach, right? And he said, see there, he made it. Yeah. So he was telling the nurse that he could win. He could use his mind to overcome his adversity.
Fight to the end.
To the bitter end. Wow. Well, listen, it's clear that he had such an impact on your life, and it's clear that you've had an impact on all the lives of these Packer fans all over the years. Jerry, really great to see you.
My pleasure.
The first of all the great guards out of Guard U, University of Idaho, along with our old buddy Mark Schlereth and Mike Iupati. It all started with this guy, Jerry Kramer. Thanks for being here, and congratulations on the long overdue induction into the Hall of Fame.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's.